The New York Innovation Summit was in full swing, golden uplighting washing over the marble walls of the Grand Hudson Ballroom as the city's top tech moguls mingled with champagne and ambition. I stood by the edge of the terrace doors, half listening to the buzz of conversation while watching my brother, Nathan Carter, hold center stage. "This acquisition will set a new standard," he declared confidently, raising his glass. "Once Carter Digital finalizes the buyout of Stratus Logic, we'll lead the cloud infrastructure market for the next decade." I took a sip of club soda, amused. Nathan's team had barely touched the due diligence, and in less than 12 hours the entire deal would collapse, courtesy of a critical clause he never knew existed. "Lena," my mother's voice snapped, sharp as ever, "don't slouch by the exit, you're not the help." I stepped forward, knowing what was next. These events followed a reliable formula. Praise for Nathan, polite smiles for everyone else, and veiled jabs aimed squarely at me. "Nathan was just walking us through the Stratus acquisition," Mom said, beaming with pride. 35 years old and already CTO. We always knew he'd make something of himself. "Unlike some," my father added dryly, eyes flicking toward me. At 62, Martin Carter still dressed like the face of the company, though the tightness around his jaw betrayed the pressure. Carter Digital's stock had slipped 12% in the last quarter. Not that he'd admit it. "Lena's still running that, what is it, freelance consulting?" Nathan chimed in, smirking. "Vertex Solutions," I replied calmly. "We specialize in corporate network security and digital infrastructure." "Oh, right," he scoffed. "Still tinkering with code in that co-working space?" If he only knew the co-working space was actually 5 private floors in Manhattan Tower under my LLC, or that 3 of his lead developers had quietly joined me in the past year. But I stayed silent, just like I had for the past 3 years. "I just don't get why you walked away from Carter Digital," Mom sighed. "You were on the fast track. VP in 5 years, easy." I smiled to myself, thinking of the files waiting on my desk. Documents that would reveal who really owned a majority stake in Stratus Logic. "Anyway," Dad interrupted, "Nathan's deal is going to change everything." "The contracts are being signed at 9 a.m. sharp," Nathan added, smug and confident. If only they knew the name on the final page was mine. "Every major outlet will be covering it," Nathan had boasted earlier. I glanced at my watch, a simple leather strap design I'd intentionally chosen to blend in. Understated, unassuming. Not that I needed flash to prove anything. I could have bought out half the room without denting my accounts. "I should actually head out," I said casually. Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Finally signed a real client?" "Something like that," I replied, keeping my tone even. "Well, don't let us distract you from your little project," he laughed, lifting his whiskey. "Some of us have billion-dollar deals to close tomorrow." As I turned to leave, I caught my mother's theatrical whisper. "She just runs some startup. Honestly, it's embarrassing." I made my way toward the exit, offering polite nods to executives who had no clue the woman they were brushing past was the elusive CEO their companies had been chasing for months. Lena Collins, the name I operated under in the tech world. Outside, my driver opened the door of a modest black sedan. Not the Range Rover I usually used, too flashy. This car fit the narrative I let my family believe, struggling founder, barely scraping by. "Home, Miss Collins?" Thomas asked. "No," I said, sliding in. "The office first. I need to finalize a few things for tomorrow." A notification blinked across my phone. "Marcus, my C.O. All systems go. Carter board is still in the dark. Let's make history." I smiled, adrenaline and vindication rising in my chest. 3 years. That's how long I'd spent quietly building Vertex Solutions behind layers of shell companies, obscuring my identity. While Nathan and my parents dismissed me as some naive dropout, I was assembling one of the most advanced cybersecurity empires in the world. Another ping. Family group chat. "Don't forget to tune in tomorrow morning. Nathan's big moment. Carter Digital plus Stratus merger. 9 a.m. Live coverage." The Stratus merger. I leaned my head back, remembering that final board meeting before I left Carter Digital. "Your projections are alarmist," Nathan had said. "You're just bitter about your career," my father had added. Let your brother handle the big decisions. So I had. I walked away and started from scratch, with vision, with grit, with nothing handed to me. And tomorrow morning, while the world watched Carter Digital announce a merger, they'd unknowingly be handing control to Vertex Solutions. And to me. Not a merger, a takeover. The company they believed was worth $4 billion 0 cents was, in reality, worth less than half that, and only if you were being generous. My team had uncovered catastrophic security flaws buried deep within Stratus Logic's infrastructure, vulnerabilities that Carter Digital's due diligence team had completely overlooked. At my real office, not the shared co-working space I let my family think I used, I sat in the corner suite that took up the entire top floor of Vertex Tower, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. This wasn't some garage operation. This was an empire, built from scratch, built in silence. Miss Collins, Sarah, my assistant, appeared at the door, a sleek folder in hand. The final reports are ready for tomorrow's reveal. I took it and reviewed the contents. One last pass. The security audit that exposed Stratus's gaping weaknesses, the real valuation showing Carter Digital was paying nearly double its worth, and, most satisfying of all, the data proving Nathan's visionary strategy was built on crumbling foundations. Has the press release been cued? Ready to go live the moment you give the word, Sarah replied, then more quietly, are you sure you want to go through with it? They are your family. I stood and walked toward the window, staring down at the city where I'd forged my future, alone, without their support, approval, or recognition. They stopped being my family the moment I stopped being useful to them. Sarah hesitated. Your brother's going to be publicly humiliated. Yes, I said, flatly, but maybe that's what it takes for them to understand. Success doesn't always wear the suit they expect. My phone buzzed, a final text from Marcus. Board's locked in for 9 a.m. They have no clue what's coming. I opened my laptop, pulling up the statement I'd deliver tomorrow, the words that would introduce me to the world. Not as Lena Carter, the disappointment, but as Lena Collins, the CEO and majority stakeholder in the company that had just outmaneuvered them. Stock tickers ran across my screen. Carter Digital was teetering on desperation, counting on this merger to mask years of mismanagement and tech stagnation, but instead of a rescue, they were walking into a trap. The next morning, across the street, Carter Digital's boardroom buzzed with excitement. Camera crews flanked the long glass table. My father had already made 3 grand speeches about legacy. My brother was basking in pre-signing interviews. And I watched it all, suited in charcoal Armani, standing like a storm on the horizon. They're all in place, Marcus said from behind me. I nodded. Then let's begin. And if you've ever been underestimated by the very people who should have believed in you, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what happens when Lena finally steps into the spotlight. I smiled slightly, adjusting my cuffs as I caught sight of Stratus Logic's CEO fidgeting in his seat. He knew exactly what was coming. Of course he did. We'd briefed Stratus's board weeks ago about their exposed systems, flaws that could crumble their entire operation if made public. We gave them 2 options: risk a catastrophic leak or accept a strategic acquisition by Vertex Solutions. They chose survival. Miss Collins, Sarah said, appearing beside me with a tablet. Press release is ready. Also, your mother just arrived at Carter Digital. Celebration pearls? I asked without looking. Sarah nodded. Full regalia. I glanced at the clock. 9:45. I am Min. Right on time, I said. Let's show them what a little startup can do. The short walk across the street felt symbolic, like stepping through a mirror. On one side, I was still Lena Carter, the dismissed daughter, the family's tech disappointment. On the other, I was Lena Collins, the anonymous powerhouse they never saw coming. Through Carter Digital's towering glass walls, I could already see the buzz. Nathan holding court, microphones angled toward him as he spoke about the vision for the future. My father loomed nearby, soaking in the legacy he believed he was passing down. My mother glowed beside them, proud as ever of the child who'd followed their path. I entered the elevator, flanked by Marcus and Sarah, each carrying a sleek leather briefcase. Inside were the real documents, the ones that would rewrite the narrative in front of a live audience. At exactly 9:55 a.m., the conference room doors opened. The chatter stopped, heads turned, cameras tilted. Nathan stopped mid-interview. "Lena?" He blinked. "What are you doing here? This is a private event." I calmly stepped to the head of the table and set my briefcase down. "Good morning, everyone. Shall we begin?" My father shot to his feet, his expression hardening. "Lena, this is absurd. This is the Strata signing. Where's their CEO?" "Mr. Weiss won't be joining us," I said, nodding at Sarah, who began distributing thick folders to the stunned board members. "He signed the final paperwork last night." Nathan's voice cracked. "That's not possible. I have the merger contract right here." "That contract," I said smoothly, "is void." Gasps echoed as he opened the folder before him. "Stratus Logic has accepted a different offer." My father's hands curled into tight fists. "Who the hell?" "Mordex Solutions," I interrupted, "or more specifically, me." The room fell into stunned silence. Camera crews swung in my direction, eyes widening. "This is insane," Nathan finally stammered, his voice cracking. "You run a small cybersecurity startup. There's no way you could afford." "That small startup," I said, turning toward him, "is worth $12,400,000,000, 0 cents, Nathan. Vertex Solutions is now the largest cybersecurity firm in North America." I tapped the tablet, and the main screen in the boardroom flickered to life. Financial graphs, global reach maps, and client portfolios filled the display. "While you were all mocking my hobby, I built something you never saw coming." Across the table, my mother's pearl necklace clinked audibly as she slowly sank into her seat, visibly shaken. "But you work from that tiny office near Midtown," she said, bewildered. "A front," I explained. "Vertex operates in 20 countries, supports government contracts, and we own this building, actually. And as of midnight last night, we own Stratus Logic." My father's voice cracked. "Why? Why would you go through all this trouble?" I looked him straight in the eyes. "Because 3 years ago, I came to you with concerns. I told you Carter Digital's infrastructure was outdated, vulnerable. I warned you. You told me to leave the real business decisions to people who understand them. So I did." I nodded to Sarah, who immediately distributed the next set of documents. Board members leaned in. Whispers began. Chairs creaked. The illusion was collapsing fast. "These files detail why Stratus agreed to our terms," I continued. "They were hemorrhaging money, riddled with breach risks, and barely staying afloat. All things your due diligence team missed, Nathan." He flipped through the pages, his hands shaking. This could destroy us." "No," I said, my voice even. "This could save you." There was silence, only the low hum of the ceiling lights and the flick of pages being turned. "Vertex isn't just taking over Stratus. We're offering a full acquisition of Carter Digital at a fair price, before the market realizes how exposed you truly are." The board members sat up straighter, alert now, interested. They had seen the numbers. They just hadn't dared speak against the Carter name. Until now. "You can't do this," my father whispered. "We're family." I let out a soft laugh. "Were we family when you mocked every idea I brought to the table? When you laughed at my career? When I was only good enough to pour drinks and stay quiet?" I stood, the weight of years lifting from my shoulders. "Carter Digital has 12 hours to decide. After that, we go public." Sophia turned to my mother, desperate. "Mom? Do something." But there was nothing to be done. I looked around the room that once defined my failure, now echoing with my silence. "Last night at the gala, you called my work embarrassing," I said, letting the words hang in the air. "You spend years belittling me, mistaking my quiet for weakness." I walked to the door, paused, and turned back one final time. "I want you to remember this moment," I said, voice calm but resolute. "Remember that the daughter you dismissed as a failure now holds the fate of your company in her hands." No one spoke. The next hour blurred into a flurry of signatures, paperwork, and stunned silence. Executives mumbled legal verifications while board members glanced between one another, avoiding eye contact. Nathan was escorted out of the boardroom, his polished facade finally cracking as the weight of his downfall sank in. His hands trembled as he cleared out his office. My father? He couldn't look me in the eye as he handed over his Carter Digital Access badge, once a symbol of legacy, now a relic of a dynasty that refused to evolve. On the conference table, my mother's iconic celebration pearls lay abandoned, forgotten in the chaos. That evening, I stood alone in my real office, Vertex Tower, floor 62, watching the city lights flicker as the sun melted behind the skyline. Marcus appeared beside me, holding a glass of Dom Perignon, the same vintage my family had toasted with the night before, while mocking the very career that had just acquired them. Was it worth it? He asked softly. I thought of the years of side comments, the pitying smiles, the job offers to come back and learn from the best. I thought about my team, my clients, the security innovations that had redefined digital protection across 20 nations. It was never about revenge, I said quietly. It was about building something real. Showing the world, and maybe even myself, that success doesn't have to come from legacy or approval. The year that followed brought changes no one in my family could have foreseen. Carter Digital, under Vertex leadership, was reborn into a forward-thinking tech firm. Nathan eventually landed a mid-tier role at a consulting firm, one that didn't carry his name. My parents? They quietly stopped throwing their legendary galas. No more slideshows, no more name-dropping. As for me, I kept going, not to prove them wrong anymore, but because I'd found something they never understood. True success isn't loud. It's not about legacy. It's about creating something that outlives you. And now, when people ask how I did it, I tell them the truth. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge is becoming so successful that by the time they notice, it's already far too late to matter. For years, I was the one they laughed at, the one they brushed aside, the one they assumed would never be more than a footnote in someone else's success story. But I've learned that silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's where the strongest people do their best work. If you've ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told that your dream is too small, I want you to drop a comment below. Tell me your story. I want to hear it, because I've been there. And if this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button, not for the drama, but to remind yourself that you don't need anyone's permission to rise. You don't have to follow their path to be worthy. You just have to believe that your path, quiet, bold, or unconventional, is enough. Let this be your reminder. You are not a failure just because they can't see your vision. Keep building, keep growing, and one day, when they finally look up, let them realize the empire they once ignored was yours all along.